So recently I had the honor of going on Dr. Garza's channel for a bit of a discussion. We had a discussion about a few different things, and well, I think you might be interested to hear what we had to say. So sit back and enjoy.
All right, welcome back to another edition of Bible Answers Unfiltered and Black Belt Theology and Apologetics. I'm your host, Dr. L. Garza, and I'm here with Keith. Reality Jesus Saves. How are you, brother?
Always good to be here, man, and it's an honor to go through this topic, actually, because this is one of my favorite topics.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting with the people we've been kind of in communications with on here on YouTube, some crazy stuff.
It's crazy, man. He had a live now, and I was kicked 3 times for telling him to read the Greek in John 1:3.
Oh, yeah. No, he won't read it. What did he tell you?
He told me
he
was saying it's unambiguous because he's saying that's not a him. And I'm saying that that Hotu there means him. Yeah. And then he brings up John 6:60, where it's spoken about of a speech to it, and he's saying, but you see, this means it. So you calling the him a it in John 1:3, and I'm like, no, it's totally different contexts.
Grammatically, it's understood as a him, a masculine. And then I remember speaking with him before, and he said that John 17:5, he commented it's a mistranslation. The glory I had with you. Yeah.
He actually told me before he doesn't agree with that translation. Yeah. It's like, who are you to tell us who you agree with or not?
Every translation does it that way. That's what I understand. I mean, it's like, so why don't you write your own Bible? Become a real cult leader and make your own Bible, create your own grammar books, everything. Because obviously, even BDAG, apparently he doesn't like it only when it's okay with him.
Well, I don't think he knows how to use BDAG too well, to be honest.
He does it, but when you point things out to him, he goes, "What? That's just inference. That's just inference by BDAG. That's not how it is." I'm like, okay, really? Then you need to create your own lexicon or your own, because that's where it gets.
I was actually laughing because he was trying to review when he's like trying to straw man and saying you accidentally proved Jesus is not God, which is total nonsense. And he's like, he's saying how you are not a real scholar. You should, pack up your things, and Dr. Brown's not accredited and all this stuff. And then he goes and he gives an off-cuff remark saying, you are always commenting how people don't know how to use the BDAG, but you don't know how. And you bring up a section and he doesn't know where to get it. No, and I was laughing myself.
I did that on purpose because I wanted to see if he could determine what BDAG was saying, because if you knew how to read it, you can see what it's referencing. I was referencing one for the flesh, and of course the other one was who became. Yeah. So I was referencing both in 2 different categories, and he couldn't tell the difference. He's like, where's he getting this from? He thought it was under the same category, and it wasn't. I pulled up the flesh and became, and he didn't know how to make that distinction, because right there in the BDAG, it tells you what it's referring to, and he couldn't figure it out. That just proves my point that he couldn't even make a distinction how I was using it without giving away what the word was, and that's what I was trying to do.
Exactly, but the irony with that, I was actually laughing. I don't know how we're going to get it through to him, though. How are we going to actually get it through to him that when the word became flesh, he took on a nature, a second nature. He doesn't, he just, I don't know, it's almost like he doesn't understand that God became a man. The man just didn't pop out of nowhere. It's literally that word there, is to become from something.
Right.
And he doesn't understand that.
He claims he does. I've heard him define the Trinity, and okay, I was thinking when he was saying it, okay, that's but when you're arguing against it, you're straw manning it, or you're begging the question. You're asking loaded questions that we don't believe. That's why when he said, he points to in the Greek when he talked about Romans 1:1 or 1:3 and Galatians 4, see, Jesus became flesh, a man. He became, And I'm like, we believe that. What are you talking about? You believe that he just came into existence at that moment, but that's not what the text says. It even says, according to the flesh, we believe spiritually he existed as the Word in the Old Testament, and he appeared different times. But that's the difference. Is he claims, well, I'm not strong. When you're doing that, pointing to verses that we have no problem with, it's just the way you're interpreting it to try to make it feel like it's saying only a human being created, like coming into existence. That's where it doesn't say. You're interpreting it that way, and it doesn't take away from the other verses even that you mentioned from Philippians 2 and John and other passages, even in 1 Corinthians 15, where Paul says that the second man came down from heaven, which he never answered. I brought up textual variants in there, and he says, oh, see, Dr. Garza is bringing up variants. Yeah, but I read all three, and they all say the same thing. That the man, you could say the man, second man came down from heaven. You can say the Lord came down from heaven, or the God came down from heaven, but he still came down from heaven. It doesn't matter which one you pick. That was the whole point. And he was hung up on the variant, which didn't matter.
No, but that's the thing. That's because I keep asking him the same question. There's only two ways we can look at this. Either he's very ignorant and slow, or he's dishonest. There can only be these two situations, because if he says he understands the Trinity, that means, okay, it's not slow. He's deliberately misrepresenting and strawmanning.
Yeah.
So he has to
be
choose
a little bit of
one
both. Maybe a little bit of both.
He can be both. Yeah, I mean,
maybe he is ignorant and slow, but yet sometimes he gets things right when he's commenting about what we believe. But then on the other hand, he can't fully comprehend or see what it's saying, and he might be slow, because there's so many times I've caught him looking at something and trying to read and say, "Oh, see, oh my gosh, I got this," and then he goes, "Oh, wait a minute, oh no, that's okay, no, wait," and then he stops. I'm like,
but that was exactly that same that one stream when he was trying to review your and Dr. Brown's discussion. He claims, guys, I haven't watched this. We're going to do this. I'm going to do it as professional as possible. And I can see him literally reading a script. I can see it. It's not. It's like he already had the things planned out, even the scriptures he put on screen. He already had it planned out. How do you do that beforehand if you didn't watch it?
Right. And then did you notice him reading? You notice that, right?
He was reading. You could see him reading it.
Yeah, you could see him reading something as if he like you said, he already pre-prepared. So here's a question by Dan Paul. This is interesting, because I would really like to address these things. Sir, how is the word of the Lord a person in Genesis, but only place where it's obvious is 1 Kings 19? So that's a great question. And I'm going to make this point. I've told people so many times, 1 Kings 19, when you get to verses 9 on, there's a clear distinction between the word Yahweh, and of course, he says to go stand before Yahweh after he has a conversation with Elijah. This is interesting because I decided to take a lot of time one day. It actually took me a few days, where I looked at the grammatical structure for Divad Yahweh with that little makif, the little dash that puts it there, as two nouns, right? As two nouns. And I decided to look throughout the Hebrew Bible, all the different books, to see how that appears that way consistently. And it appears that way every time as the word Yahweh in that same grammatical form, two nouns joined together in a construct chain with that makif, and it puts it as devar, as devar grammatically with the vowel pointings, and it's always used as the word of the Lord came to, and then speaks, and then acts and does the things. When you look at that same order without the makif, and it's in the same word order, it changes to a verb. It becomes devir Yahweh without the construct. No, it's not even it's devir, dever, devir Yahweh, and it's a verb, and it's translated as Yahweh said, Yahweh spoke, Yahweh did, Yahweh commanded.
Almost like a third person.
Well, it's in that form. It's speaking of literally the word being something Yahweh speaking. Okay, so that argument that people Unitarians make, well, it's just him speaking a word. It's just him. Well, there's a grammatical way to say that. You change it from not being a noun anymore, the word not being a noun, to a verb, which sometimes it is, and it's in the same word order, but it's not in a construct change. There's no makef, and it's noun or verb, and it's translated as Yahweh said or commanded. So there's a way that you can look at it as Yahweh speaking, or the word Yahweh being a distinct person from Yahweh appearing and coming and speaking in action, because it's now two nouns joined together to phonetically represent one word, emphasizing Yahweh as the primary, and of course makef and saying the word Yahweh came and spoke and did this. So that's what I tell people. That's how you know.
And that's how you can reference this to John 1, because when
Exactly.
it says the word, we know that it's already referencing, because that's what John did know, that Jesus was the Bar
Right.
Yahweh in the Old Testament.
So when you go to Genesis 15, the first time that form, two nouns joined together, Devar Yahweh, Abraham addresses him as Adonai Yahweh, my Lord's Yahweh, and he speaks to Abraham. From that point on, whenever you see him, you see that same grammatical form, it's always coming to someone and speaking, like to Elijah. And the word of the Lord came to Elijah and said, if it was just the Lord speaking, all you'd have to do is just change the vowel pointings, so now it becomes a verb, take away the makef, there's no more makef, and now it's no longer in a construct change, so it's now Yahweh said something. And it's in the same word order. It's Davir Yahweh, it's in the same word order. So I showed that to somebody, and they were like, wow, I didn't, yeah, but you have to kind of go through all of the books to see how it's used. So it took me hours and hours to do a nerd study on just that one word and see, okay, let me see how it appears and yep, sure enough, that's how you know. If from the Hebrew is that when you see it that way, it's always in that same form, coming and speaking and commanding. Whereas if it's a verb and it's davir, then it's something different. It's Yahweh speaking something.
So it
Yahweh
gives the context.
Yes, and yeah. And I looked at that and I said, that's how you know, because First Kings gives you that distinctions in First Kings 19. And if you understand the grammatical structure, you see the same type of pattern all throughout the Hebrew Bible when it's formulated that way as a construct chain as with the makef. It's the same way. Without it, and you change the vowel pointings, davir, now it's Yahweh speaking a word. Yahweh said, Yahweh commanded, Yahweh. That's how it's translated all throughout the Hebrew Bible. So the writers knew how to make that distinction. And they made distinction of two nouns as Yahweh, the word, coming and speaking versus Yahweh said as a verb. They knew how to do that. And that's what I said, they deliberately chose as 1 Kings 19 to make it distinct as separate from Yahweh.
And that's how we know that they believed in a multi-personal Yahweh.
Right.
Exactly. There's so many cookies, you can say, cookie crumbles everywhere showing this.
Yeah.
I think it would be impossible to be honest with yourself and read, especially through the Old Testament, and think there's not a multi-personal God there.
No. And this book just came out a couple of years ago, and it's a great book, Israel's Lord. And this deals with Yahweh as two powers in Second Temple literature, and it deals with Yahweh and then the two of the word and the messenger that appear throughout the scriptures. Great book. It goes into a lot of things I've been saying for years. So when I was reading, I was like, yeah, I've been saying that for years. And they give all the references, the citations, Jewish sources. They go through everything in here dealing with that subject. And it's a great book. I think it's published in 2024, 25. And it deals exactly with that, the powers and how the Jews understood it, even in their own Jewish sources. So,
yeah, because they actually just started calling it heretical after Jesus, because the Christians started using it in the theology, and they didn't want that to happen. And I think that this is the thing that people don't understand the history, and that's why they don't want to accept the two powers in heaven. That's why when they reference Jews today, they're like, oh no, they don't believe in the two powers in heaven, but they don't know the history behind it.
Right, exactly. They don't know the history. They don't know the First Temple, Second Temple Jewish literature. They don't know the concepts within the Hebrew Bible where this is formulated, this is brought out. But what's interesting too, and I was looking at Gesenius's work in his Hebrew grammar, and one of his footnotes in here, he talks about the how Jews understood even the plural forms of God, like Elohim. And one of his footnotes, which nobody catches because unless you can actually see it in Hebrew, he says the Jewish grammarians call such plurals, and he's referring to the plurals like Elohim and so forth, and different areas as plural of powers. Okay, plural of powers. Of course, he writes it in Hebrew, reboi, and it's hachot, and he says this is habachot, which is power. So he says they understood it as the Jews refer to early Jews grammarians put it as plural of powers, whereas later grammarians then started to use it an abstract form of a plural of majesty or a plural of excellence.
Yeah, after the 13th century.
So he goes on to say, he says the Jewish grammarians call such plurals plural of powers, and later grammarians call it the plural of excellente, majestatis, plural of magnitude. So these were later thoughts and ideas like we were talking before, but the early Jews call it plural of powers. Now that's interesting because there is polemic work that I had pulled out from the early Middle Ages, 9th, 10th century, or actually by 10th, 11th century and on, where there were Jewish communities, and polemic works are when Jews are writing to criticize believers or other Jews. So these Jews were criticizing Jewish believers or Jewish Christians who believed in Jesus. And so the polemic work was that one of their criticisms was that these Nazarenes, and they call them the Nazarenes, which comes from the New Testament, they say they believe or you believe in three powers. Okay.
Three Trinity. Powers.
Yes. That goes with what Gesenius says, that grammarians, Jewish, refer to these abstract plurals as plural of powers. And now there's polemic work that I have on my shelf that talk about that. The Nazarenes, which was a Jewish sect that goes back to even mentioned in Acts of the Nazarenes, mentioned by the early church fathers in the 4th century of Jewish believers and communities. They believed in, they called it, what did I just say? The
plural powers.
Not plural, but that's the grammatical. Three powers. Yeah, they call it three powers, whereas Gesenius refers to it as Jewish grammarians calling it the plural powers. Yeah. So there is a connection. And so, yeah, go ahead.
But I do think people, especially when they like bring up plural majesty and things, they somehow think that makes it singular. And we've actually spoken about this before. They don't understand plural majesty is still plural.
Right.
There's still someone else involved.
Yeah. Well, that's the interesting. Here's the thing, and I had to go back and I had to revisit all this, and it's like I got to go back, and I'm glad I did. The plural of majesty and the plural of these different compounds, it's so easy to see, and I just tell people, look, it evolved. This word evolved. Okay, prior to that, 13th century, you have the plural of majesty as a royal we. Obviously, kings were speaking, as we mentioned before, and they would talk about themselves in a plural way, or even with themselves in God. But even in that sense, they would talk about themselves in their majestic power, who they are as kings. So they would say our presence and all that, either with God or with their kingdom. It was always in reference to something else because of their hierarchy. But they'd speak about themselves in that way. Then it evolved, and that's why I said with Gesenius and others, where the first time the plural of majesty appears is in a dissertation, a 70-page dissertation, and I think his name was Sassi, and he wrote about it in Latin, I believe it was. I have to double check, Latin or German, and he wrote about it as he referenced it that we can determine as of right now the first time he uses this plural of majesty, majestatis, and then Gesenius picks up on it in his grammar book. So it doesn't really pop up as a category until the 19th century. It was used that way, and there's no consensus before that. Scholars are debating about the time of the 2nd, 3rd century Romans, but there's no consensus. They don't know if it was being used or not. So the fact that people don't understand that there is an evolution to how it's first understood to versus when Gesenius picks it up and this other gentleman picks it up as well in his dissertation writing about it shows that you have to really go back and study this, because it's not easy when you're trying to explain to people who just have a one direction mind that this is it, this is all it means, and there's nothing else to it. It's like, it's a little more complicated than that.
Yeah.
You just
Yep.
can't, make it as it is. That's why I said it's, and I'm trying to see, I'm going to see this in the time frame that I'm looking at here. The earliest that we can, I remember looking at it, and because I actually went online and I purchased that dissertation, and it's going to take me a few weeks to get it, but I bought it so I can look at it. What was that?
So you're getting a hard copy?
Yeah, I'm getting a hard copy of that dissertation. It's coming from overseas, but it's let me see here. I have to go through.
I see your library is growing quite big now. You're going to need to extend your bookshelf.
I already have.
Now.
Honestly, I have no more room. I have to kind of like put other books away that I don't really use anymore because I don't have any more room. It's literally gotten that bad. And my wife's like, "You just need to buy more books." Like, yeah, I'm afraid so. Nothing else I can do about that. So Joseph Sasse, or Sasse, 1889. He has a printed copy. So he was dealing with the plural of majesty in that for the first time. So he wrote about it. That's the first really printed we have, and a monograph of his dissertation. And it was, and then after that we comes to Gesenius. So it was in his Latin doctoral dissertation that he wrote it, and this is 70 pages. So that's what I went and I bought, and it's coming from, I think it's coming from Switzerland. I think where I bought it from, it's coming from overseas, but I want to get it so I can actually look at it and read it and see. But that's the first time that we have the printed version of it before Gesenius. And then after that, Gesenius picks up on it and uses something. So these phrases are new. As far as the categories, how they're used, we can go back to 13th century Europe, monarchs and kings. Prior to that, there's no consensus.
It was like literally the linguistically are different as well.
Yeah, exactly.
When they look at the plural of respect as well, I see this a lot, especially with the Unitarians. They don't actually know what it is, and that's what I'll say. They hear, for instance, Dustin Smith or Metaphysics Mike say the plural of majesty, and then they just think that all of a sudden is saying there is not multi-personal Yahweh, without understanding that even if you want to place that into the text, which it's not because it's not in Semitic languages, you are still making the Trinity true because you're making it multi-personal.
Right. In a sense, you are, and that becomes the problem. The other thing that becomes the problem, and let me see if I can pull this up, is that when you look at how it's used, the Elohim, even as the plural, it's as Gesenius says, it's used as an abstract. It refers to Godhead. Now, the Godhead we know in Greek, theotes, comes from Colossians 2:9. And it's translated there as essence, nature, deity, divinity, all the fullness of deity, essence, nature, everything in the body. So we see that this abstract form Godhead is used in the New Testament. That Gesenius references how the plural of Elohim is understood as an abstract as Godhead. Elohim, Godhead, is found in the New Testament only one time by Paul, and that is in the essence and nature, the deity, divinity in the body, in bodily. So that's what I'm like, okay, so even if you want to argue that a point, it still doesn't take away from that fact that the abstract is found in New Testament as going into the Messiah. That's why it still doesn't make sense to me how they can still ignore that.
I mean, it's working off of Matthew 28:19. When the Holy Spirit descends on him as a dove and remains. So it's that's why I always love bringing Matthew up for that specific reason, because it shows that when you have that scenario happening, and you have Jesus, the Holy Spirit, and the Father there present, that is showing the union of the two natures. That's
Right.
practically what the hypostatic union is trying, conveying.
Exactly.
And when the people come say, "Well, the Bible doesn't teach this," no, it's literally there. You just have to
It
accept what it
is.
says.
It is exactly, and that's it's not a matter of accepting. It's a matter for them how they're going to refute it.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to accept it. Like I mentioned to you earlier, and this is what we have in the text here. And I'll pull up a little bit. Oops, let me pull you back up here. Uh, here is let me go back here. I want to bring this up in a way. The theotes I mentioned from Colossians 9, the state of being God, divine character, nature, deity, divinity, used as an abstract noun for theos. Now that's the abstract noun. That's what's found in Gesenius as Elohim being abstract, referring to Godhead. That's why translations, all the fullness of the Godhead in some of the Greek and the English text, referring to theotes as God, because it's abstract. But that abstract is the state of being God, divine character, nature, deity, divinity. That's how it's understood. So we get that from Gesenius as the abstract form of Elohim. We get that from grammarians calling it plural powers, three powers in the Nazarenes who were being accused of believing in three powers. This was consistent within the New Testament and afterwards. So there's not a debate, like you were saying, of this plural persons, these plural powers that came looked at from the Hebrew Bible, which again is great in that book, Israel's Lord. There's no debate on that. That's why I'm like, this is just people who don't want to accept what the scriptures say. And historically, what we know from the writings and what we know from Jewish sources and all that, it's just it's amazing to me how people view this stuff.
It's yeah, but I think that's the catch-22 of the internet, though. People find someone on the internet, and then because they are ignorant, and I'm going to say it plainly, they fall for nonsense.
Yeah,
And because someone has confidence in what they push, and they, for instance, bring up the lexicons, they sound like they actually know what they're talking about.
yeah,
But the people
yeah.
don't do their due diligence and actually go, look, is this person actually speaking the truth?
Right.
And I think that's the problem where a lot of Unitarians sit in today, because they're ignorant, to be honest.
Yeah, and you know, when I was listening to another apologist, and based on what you just said, he's fed up with dealing with Unitarians. I won't name his name, but he was on there saying, I don't even want to deal with them more because he was criticizing the low IQ. They don't want to, they're just dumb. But he put his low IQ intelligence that we talk to them. It's like they want to ignore one part, like you said, just not even deal with it. And
Mm-hmm.
because of social media, like these people can just go on there and claim to be their self-proclaimed scholar. Nobody can correct them. You
Jesse.
know, yeah, yeah. Bless you. I know you sneezed, so that's okay. So we have all these things going on, and it's like this, and they go and they follow like sheep, because it sounds good to them because they have the same kind of idea or concept. As I say, look, this is when Jesse was criticizing me about how Garza lied about the Greek. It doesn't say what it says, and then I pulled it up. I said it's right there in BDAG. Oh, that's inferring. That's just BDAG commentary. I said it's a lexicon. That's what they're telling you what the word means in the
Actually, what it
context.
is.
From exactly. So you won't accept this. So you got to use your AI to figure out how to get around it, and you're getting your answers. But you called me a liar, and it's in the lexicon stating that God emptied that the Messiah emptied himself and divested it, and you don't like the way I worded it, and so it's right there in BDAG, his privileges and all, and he criticized me that I'm a degree. It's right there. That's how it's understood, and
Crazy.
so but that's the thing is he doesn't. He'll just flat out, and other Unitarians will do it, and non-Trinitarians, even Muslims do it, and there's times and all that. They just say things like, even when you saw when I put the different Greek, they'll just say things because at that moment they're in a position where they have to, because if they don't, it makes, what are they going to say, that they're wrong, and they're not going to admit that, so they have to say something.
And that's when they usually pull up the misquotations and the miscontext. So they go to a total different scripture, it's got total different context. Now it uses the same word, but that word in context means something else.
Right.
And they would say, well, this is what it's here, so that means that's what it means there.
Right.
And it's literally like a get out of jail free card kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I saw this when I was debating Jesse, and I bring up echad, and he tells me it's not an adjective. And then you literally go to the lexicon and you see it's an adjective. And you can show it to him, but he just won't respond to it.
No.
You know, it's
no, and that's what I'm saying. He won't deal with it. He won't comment on it. He'll just either dismiss it, call you a name, say something about you. Just like he said, just like when I brought up 1 Corinthians 15:47, when I brought up the 3 variants, he said, well, see, he's reading the variants, and he left it at that. The fact of what it said, like I was saying, which was strong a case against him, he's comparing the first man from the earth, earthly, which is just a man like you and I, and he even says we are all that way, and the second man is from heaven above, spiritually. So, and I said there's textual variants that says the Lord from heaven or Elohim from heaven, but it's the same concept. He's still from heaven. A distinction between an earthly man like Adam, which the Messiah is not, to the spiritual of the one who came down from heaven.
The ontology is totally different.
That's what I'm and he just glossed over it. Well, see how he's quoting textual variants? Move on. Let's go. I'm like, okay, you're not going to deal. I mean, you don't have to accept Lord or God there, but it says the second man is from heaven. That's his origin, is from the earthly man to the heavenly. It's amazing.
His argument was, no, you didn't actually address his argument. We literally did when we for instance say that because Jesus came through Mary and he became into flesh, that is the argument. That's literally showing God became man, which is 2 natures.
Exactly. And we pointed that out in John 1:3, where it makes the transition in the Greek of the Greek word become, and became flesh. Actually, it was 1:14, became flesh. The taking on the second, the nature, changing of the nature to now becoming flesh, where now he puts on the form of a servant. So that taking on that nature of flesh from spirit to flesh is where they get hung up on, because they want, like you said, focus only on the virgin birth, or not even the virgin birth. He doesn't even believe in the virgin birth anyway.
He doesn't even believe that.
Yeah, he doesn't believe that. He believes Joseph is the literal father. So that's even funnier. So other Unitarians do, but he wants to believe that this is a literal human being only through Joseph and Mary, literally, and therefore everything he focuses on, like I said, is becoming a man, and the man, like a Unitarian argument. But again, like you said, you have to ignore the rest of Scripture and reinterpret it and redefine it, and then try to play games. And that's where I said scholars, for the last, since almost 2,000 years, have dealt with this stuff, and they've written on it, and they know from the languages what the text is trying to say. And it's amazing to me that these people just won't deal with the second half. That's why I say some people say the Unitarians come to the Bible with one eye. Humanity, and they don't want to see the other side of it, where it says humanity and deity, divinity. They just don't do it.
And it's quite a new thing, though, because if you look through the history, you don't actually get Unitarian scholars because they don't actually have a leg to stand on.
Yeah.
And
you don't.
All we really get from, for instance, like Jesse, who's saying, well, you guys are not credited, you and your fake PhDs and blah, blah, blah.
Even Dr. Michael Brown, he's not accredited. He's not a real scholar. All Trinitarians to him, scholars, are not scholars. They're not. It's like, wow.
All your PhDs in Semitic languages is just bogus because Jesse says so, guys.
Yeah. All your training, all the books people have written by Oxford on the training, they're all illegitimate. And the funny thing is, I want to tell Jesse, your Bibles that you're reading are translated by Trinitarian scholars, right? The vast majority are Trinitarian scholars translating your Bible from the languages, and yet you're using them. BDAG are Trinitarian scholars. So I'm not sure why you would just dismiss every scholar. That means your Bible translation in English is illegitimate, depending Most of which ones you use.
Blue Letter Bible that he's using, it's a Trinitarian site.
Exactly. And it's worked on by Trinitarians who put it together. So that's why it doesn't make sense why he criticizes rather than trying to say they're not real scholars. Okay, you are. And he said he's a real scholar, but without a paper. He says he has a GED. That's about where it
No, the thing is, if he doesn't even understand, for instance, how to means him in John
Right.
1:3, okay?
Same
How
thing,
can
yeah.
he claim to be a scholar? He doesn't understand what Geneo means. He doesn't understand what most, and I've picked this up, 70% or maybe 80% of the words he brings up, especially in the Greek, he's parroting from someone like Metaphysics Mike or Teach Yao or whatever, and they don't even know what those words mean.
Nope.
Okay. And if you've realized, like him, he doesn't quote Hebrew because he doesn't know the Hebrew. And I saw this when I was debating him. He knows nothing about Hebrew at all. But he wants to claim to be like a scholar. And everyone else who's actually studied about this is just wrong because they disagree with him. And that's not the way you should go through life. I mean, he has a word that we call Dunning-Kruger. He's got a lot of confidence in being wrong.
Yeah. That's a good point. A lot of confidence in being wrong. He did it with you with the nominative vocative form. That was the other thing is he won't accept the fact that a vocative could be in a nominative form, which is in every grammar book that I have. Even in the 90s, I have a book, my grammar book from the 90s when I took Greek. It's right there about the nominative vocative form where when you have it direct addressed to him, even if it's in the nominative, it's addressing somebody. And he wouldn't deal with that when he denied, I'm not answering, it's on the vocative. I'm not answering. It doesn't have to be.
But that's how I was like trying to make it as plain English to him as I could. It's like, who's talking to who? Who's addressing who?
Right.
But he's like a broken tape recorder.
You did it right by saying who's he talking, because in the Greek it applies to him, Jesus. Who is said to him? Who is to him? It's speaking to someone. Whenever you have that, even if it's in the nominative, it's still considered a form of evocative because it's addressing somebody. So the scholars recognize that in Koine Greek, and they have dozens of examples that way in the New Testament, but he does not want to accept it. And that's the problem. When you bring up things like this against them, they have a tendency to just plainly reject what the text says, even if it's from the grammar books, the lexicons, whatever it is. But when it fits when they think it fits their theology, then they use it like it's gold. Well, let's pull up BDAG, the most like Mike does. Let's bring it up, the most authoritative. And then it's like, dude, you're not even reading it. And then when you bring up the actual reading of it or the understanding, oh no, he doesn't deal with it. Nope. It's a mistranslation, or I don't agree, or it's inferenced by the scholars there. It's all that. Oh, okay. Well, then don't use it at all, because then you really can't make a clear distinction of what is being applied to in this context or what you want to call commentary or inference. Then don't use it. Throw it away, because there's no point. It gets to the point of being just redundant.
Yeah, they're taking all the structure and authority away. Because if you're appealing to something that you think has no authority, then why use it at all?
Exactly. There's just no, if you're not going to abide by what it says as a whole and just cherry pick certain things and put them out of context, like we did with the Romans 1 and Galatians, then just don't. I mean, it's like, that's why I said somebody needs to just take away his toys, because he's abusing these toys and just like,
and it's getting worse.
It is getting worse.
Getting worse.
He's obsessing over it, and even when he's making mistakes and obsessing over it, like what he did yesterday. So, he doubles down on it, makes another video, and then I thought this is gonna be fun. And then I put the video and put up the BDAG and privileges, and it says privileges.
Did you see how manifesting he got in that video that he made about you?
Yeah, you see, he got angry. Did you see my post on that? Did you see my post? Okay. So I posted because I saw him manifesting. He was getting like,
it was crazy.
Yeah. And so I
made and everything. It's like, I'm gonna do this if it's the last thing until one of us are passed away, or until you, you give up your scholarship. I'm like, what?
So if you go to my channel, and you go to my my channel page and you click on the posts. Right after he did that, the very top post is him. If you go there, just go to my channel, then go to click on post, and you'll see it on there. I don't know if I can share. I could try and share it.
You should be able to
Yeah, let me see.
post. Oh, and by the way, he keeps.
This one. That's the one I'm talking about.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, and I put on there specifically, and I left a comment up there of him like he's off his meds, he's losing it. I'm like,
but you know what's hypocrite? What he's actually a hypocrite, because he's got such an issue with you making that off the cuff picture, you know, with him as he's special.
Yeah. Oh,
and it's like, oh, we can see whose child is, blah blah. Go on his page quickly and see what thumbnails he's made of me.
Exactly. That was my point. That was my point, is don't complain, don't play the victim that you're getting bullied online when you're literally making memes about people, myself, you, and others. And then when we do it right back at you, you cry victimhood. I'm being bullied. He's bullying me. I'm like, you need to grow up. I mean, seriously, you can put it out, but you can't take it. That is, you probably shouldn't be doing that then if you're going to be crying victim, because he's commented on that never times. Dr. Garza is just a bully on the internet, and look what he does. I put him as a clown, special medication. So because of what you want to make it about other people as well, like he did with you.
And we're actually very mild to him. I mean, we can say a lot of other things.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I fell back a number of times. I just like, oh.
But I limited to just saying he's slow, because the word I actually want to use will probably offend him more.
Yeah, I'm sure it would, and I'm well aware of these words as well. But that's why I said special, but not in the way that he thinks. You know, he is special. He is a little slow in a lot of things, but when he gets overly anxious, like you've seen him in that video, get really raged. That's who he really is. And yet he can't handle it right back. So when I make his own memes, he plays again these people, and he's not the only one. I mean, I've had, not as bad, but I've had other Unitarians or even people just do the same thing, like play victim. You know, after they get done criticizing or calling people names, and they literally will say things about people, the minute you respond back in kind of the same way, oh, you play the victim. Oh, you're so mean. I don't really like this. I'm like, oh my, I don't know. It's just, don't do it.
It's the same game. Yeah, it's the same game they always play. It's as soon as they get caught out with whatever they make a claim on, then all of a sudden they play the victim game, so they can't answer you.
Yep, exactly. That's all they do, and that's why it to the point. You're right. I mean, it's like how far do you go? Because you have to look at it like, okay, there are times where you don't want them to. They say things, you know, that's completely false, whether it's towards me or even what the scriptures say. And so you feel obligated to look, this is an easy response, an easy, quick response, like I did yesterday with my short, that just pointed it straight out that he doesn't know what he's talking about when he says I was lying about the word about privileges, and it's not in the Greek, and it's right there in the BDAG. Yeah, privilege, you set aside privileges. Oh, that's inference. That's okay. It doesn't matter what you want to make of it. It's understood in the Greek as that way. BDAG is telling you what it's referring to in the Greek. And when I say in the Greek, I'm referring to BDAG and how it's understood, not in the English translation of emptying, but what it means and what it's reflecting upon. And that's where he said, so I'm a liar. See, and that's where I'm like, no. People are going to see right here the real truth. Took me a few minutes to put
What does he think of no reputation? What does that mean when you say of no reputation? There's something behind that word.
Yep. and that's why I said BDAG lists exactly how it's understood with divesting, privileges, empty, all that stuff is in there in the category of what it means. And that's what I say, it's not me. And this is the thing is that he acts like you're saying, he acts like I'm the only Trinitarian who says these things. And there's many biblical scholars out there. I told him there's thousands of scholars who've written on this for so long. I'm not the one for the first time bringing this stuff up like it's brand new. Jesse acts like this is all brand new. It's like
These things have been going on for centuries.
yes. And I cite the sources, I cite what I can. It's right there. I'll pull up, like you said, I'll pull up even when I mentioned the polemic works that connects what we understand as the three powers by the Nazarenes, mentioned by even the early church, 4th century, first in the book of Acts. These polemic works identify Jewish communities believing in, even one that I have from the National Library of Israel that I've already translated, points out that these Jews, these believers believe in the Son, the Father, and the Spirit, that Jesus became flesh, that this man became flesh. It even references Matthew, Jesus on the cross in Hebrew, Eli Eli sabachthani. It even phrases that in Hebrew, that this Jesus says this, or how could he be God if he's saying they're citing a Hebrew text of Matthew.
Commentary,
commentary. They're saying that these Jews believe in three: Son, Father, and Spirit in that order. Jesus, God in the flesh, they're one. These were Jewish communities during that time who believed it. And
that's why you had the Didache. That's why you had the Didache in 50 AD as well. It's exactly the same thing, because they were believing exactly in the Trinity. Just because the word wasn't the Trinity yet, because they haven't actually given it a name, doesn't mean it wasn't there.
They had powers, plural powers, three powers. The Jews had that. The Latin, of course, the Trinity, of course, they had different names and terms for it. Like Ksenia says, the early Jews called it powers, the plural powers, three powers, and the Nazarenes, Trinitarian concepts. That goes back to what we know, like you said, Second Temple Jewish literature, that the two powers, that the powers in heaven. This is not foreign to Judaism. They just didn't call it Trinity because they weren't part of that Greek and Latin early church fathers and the transitions they were making and dealing with. These were separate Jewish communities who had their own terminology that they called three powers, powers, plural powers, that these Jews who were believers, that's what they taught. So they had their own language of defining what we call the Trinity, or the three persons, or the three powers, however you want to say it. It's there in Jewish and non-Jewish literature of Trinity versus powers. And like I said, it's in polemic works. This is what I'm saying. It's not foreign to the scriptures, as Alan Siegel's written about, Benjamin Summers written about, the two powers in heaven. All these things were well understood during the time of the New Testament, that the writers, Paul, the apostles, even to the medieval period.
And Benjamin D. Summers has done awesome work on this. I really do love his work.
He is.
I have realized that a lot of the Unitarians don't actually read the scholars they want to go against. So
they don't. They'll mock him and criticize them. They don't know what they're. Even though he's not a Christian, he's not a believer. He's just writing, "This is what we know," and wow, he's not. Nobody listens to him. I was like,
he doesn't agree with you.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
You read it in his work. It's like he verbatim does.
Yeah, I'm like, he's honest enough to say that what we believe is not foreign to the scriptures. It's there. He doesn't have to believe it, but he's not saying like they're saying, just lying about it. He's being honest. And so because he's being honest, most non-Trinitarians, whether it's Muslims or Unitarians or even oneness people, they just, nobody listens to him. And he's like, he's one of the most well-respected Hebrew Jewish scholars out there. He's written, he's written, it's almost like anybody who is held at high status to these people who have no education in the field like to try and bring them down as if they're not accredited. Dr. Brown, Semitic scholar, he's not accredited. I mean, I
want to know what makes you guys not accredited, because that's the thing.
Because we don't agree with them. If I was a Dustin Smith or a Dale Tuggy Unitarian, they would love me. They would hold me in high esteem. Like them.
I mean,
that's the only way.
Even Dustin Smith, even though I don't agree with him, it doesn't mean he's not accredited. Yes, he's deceptive. Yes, he's lying. But that doesn't mean he's not accredited. He still got his PhD. You know what I mean? Right. So that's all. Like, it's like when you say someone's not accredited just because they disagree with you.
Yeah.
That shows you don't even know what that word means.
No, they don't. And that's the sad part is they don't. They throw it around so loosely, as if, and that's why it's very insulting. But again, it just shows they're very ignorant and I say very dumb in that area, that they don't understand what they're saying. Because if we said that about some of their people, they would have a cow. They'd be like so mad. Oh no, you can't say. What are you talking about? Okay, you can say it about anybody else. I can name Hebrew scholars from Gleason Archer and so many other. If you want to say even late Michael Heiser, who's a Hebrew. They're all phonies and fakes because they believed in the Trinitarian teaching. Oh, they're not real scholars. They're not. Okay, all the Oxford Trinity books that came out, and they're all not real scholars. Yeah, Brill has published books on that. They're all not. I mean, it's like, how far do you really want to go?
It's crazy.
How far?
And I want to point out, soon you're going to get an education on the plural of majesty, because apparently you don't know what that is.
Apparently. That's why I was kind of looking up some stuff to make sure, because I had a feeling he's going to try and pull this card out. Like I said, I'm gonna pull this out because that's why I said I have that first reference, doctoral dissertation. I have the words come from. All this stuff is easy. Yeah, it's all over. It's right, but I wanted to make sure, because I know he doesn't understand what it really means, how it's used, how it's understood, how it progressed. It's even when he tried to bring Dr. Michael Brown and try to bring us as like he disagrees with me. That's why I had to make that video, because if you listen to Dr. Michael Brown, what he said word for word, that's why I had to pause and say, "Did you hear what he said?" Mm-hmm. No disagreement there. Here's what he said. When that the plural majesty is understood in Near Eastern Semitic languages. I said, yeah, I have the book in Ugaritic and other. They said that there's some areas here that sounds like that way, but in the Hebrew Bible, the concepts are foreign, and these ideas are so it's like he's not listening. He's only hearing what he wants, and then he doesn't understand that there's no disagreement if you truly are listening, or if you're familiar with the work. There's no disagreement. As Dr. Brown said, so-called plural of majesty. So-called. Right, that's what the textbook said too. So-called plural of majesty, because there's no consensus on it in regards to how it's understood now versus back then.
It just doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist in the history. There's no evidence for it existing whatsoever. We actually have dates where we can see it existing and evolving, as you can see it from linguistically different
from Latin originally, right? Right, Latin from plural usages of royal we's. That's why I said, now they also will confuse the pluralness of like Adonim, which is my lords, in the plural with the em at the end. They again, but they categorize these are differently. They're not really referenced as plural of majesties, but they're plural of intensities or plural of something else.
Respect.
Right, respect. Which is fine. You can categorize these words in these areas, but don't to say that a specific idea or concept existed in a specific time frame that we really don't have any evidence of, and there's no real consensus, like the name Elohim being now so much looked at as singular when the scholars don't know how that happened. There's no evidence of it. It was always understood as a plural, but we don't know when that transition happened. It's even Gesenius abstract Godhead, theotes in the Greek. Okay. Be honest about that. It kind of evolved into this area where now it's looked at as a plural of intensity but in an abstract way. That's fine. But be honest with the fact that was an evolutionary process, and even scholars recognize that how that happened, we don't know. It just doesn't make sense. So it's, again, and I don't know what he's going to say, but it's going to be funny if you want. What he does,
I'm just waiting.
When he does it, you and I need to go through it.
He's just digging his hole deeper and deeper and deeper.
That's what
I mean, I've been doing a lot of study on this specific subject because that's, like I said, this is what I've been enjoying. I love, especially in the Semitic languages, because I'm actually looking to maybe do some courses on this as well.
Good. Yeah.
I enjoy this. I do.
Yeah.
And I think he's just way over his head. If he can't even get the basics that we discuss, how is he going to get that intrinsic understanding of that? Because you have people that's been in this for a long time that still don't really understand.
Right.
Right. So I think he's way over his head when it comes to this.
Even myself, I've been doing this for just over 35 years, studying the scriptures, going through all this, even going reviewing all the links. There's something new I always pick up. Something maybe I haven't really looked at. Oh, you know what? I didn't. And then I go deeper and deeper and find out, man, that's just I didn't realize this. there are times, so even after 35 plus years, there's still growth in learning, even within the languages. Like I said, when I did that deeper dive of the word of Yahweh, I never really did that whole, like, every time it appears in every single book of the Hebrew Bible, grammatically, how it looks versus the verb form versus the noun form. Um, I'm like, wow, okay, I see the pattern now. That makes sense now. Now I can see why it's a distinct person, why it's identified that way grammatically versus the verb form where it's Yahweh speaking for me, and why it appears that way in scripture. And it's like, that's just something I was kind of like, I need to do that. And so it takes a long time, but you have to be disciplined enough and really take the time, because that could take literally hours and hours to do. And you have to write it down and see. And I had to write down every place, every verse. I was writing it down. Okay, here's the verb form, here's the noun form, how it looks. And I noticed that if it's speaking, even if it's in the two noun forms, if one of the writers or the speaker in the text is referring to the word of Yahweh, it even slightly changes. So if it's a third person speaking about it, then it changes. But if it's the author himself saying it, then it's an action of doing something. So there's even those slight variants that I noticed in the text. So, but you have to be disciplined to say, okay, I'm going to do this. And even when I do it, it's like, wow, okay, now it's a stronger enforcement of why I believe it. And now I have it. So it's even better.
You can just do the Jesse. Just ask ChatGPT. It does it for you. Come on.
Yeah. and then hope that the AI doesn't hallucinate and give you something that doesn't exist, because that's what Jesse.
And I think that's a lot of what happens to him. Why he's wrong, because he expects the AI to be correct without checking it,
right?
And just accepts it. And sorry, guys, don't use AI as your source. It's wrong. It's going to go on your preference.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I was accused by another Unitarian because I had used AI to do something, not something from the Bible, something else, to do a search on the internet, to search some links for a name for somebody. And I'll tell you later, because you're gonna love this off camera live. I don't want to bring it up live because it's too crazy. But I did. He's all, oh, you're using AI to search it out. I said, I thought you said not to ever use AI. I said, excuse me, that's not what I said. Yeah, I said AI is a useful tool if you know how to use it correctly and you know how to determine the right and wrong. For biblical languages, I don't have to use it for that. I have the tools. But even if I was to search something and I've done this, I've challenged AI on things, I can tell when it's wrong. And I'll even correct and say, hey, well, I'll even tell AI, wait a minute, why are you saying this? And it'll say, you are correct. I should. And then they'll rephrase it. Or I'll say, well, that's not the consent. Oh, you are correct. And they will change it. So I can tell you, when it comes to these areas, AI is not reliable. Now, when it comes to Semitic languages and all that, now it'll scan the internet and give you links to things. Okay, check the links out. Who are they referencing? Then you can see, is this, and then if you have the book, I've done this. I've asked it, what page is this word on in the lexicon, or how can I, and it puts a page. I get my book out and go to the lexicon, wrong page. I say, it's not on that page. Can you do it at research? Or it's just, again, different page. I go back, it's not on that page. And then I'll know where it's at. And I'll say, do you mean this page on this in the lexicon? Oh, yes, you are correct. It is on that page. And then it'll bring it up correctly.
It wasted your time, yeah?
Like, this is what I'm saying. It's not 100%. Even, like I said, I've challenged it, and it does get things wrong, specifically in these areas.
It's happened to me as well when because I also use it for getting documents, because it's much quicker to do this than searching through hours and hours of pages to look for a document or something. Right. And it's exactly that. It gives you something you didn't ask for, or it wants to challenge you on things that you already know.
Yeah.
And you have to keep correcting it.
Right.
But
you know what, like I said, it is a useful tool. Like for my businesses, I've used to create documents, reword phrases. I need this, and it'll print out its own. Yeah, be great. I'll proofread it, put it in Grammarly, make the corrections. But it saves me time to have to sit there for an hour to type when I can get it done in a minute or two, and then put it in Grammarly and have it fix up the grammar. And then boom, there it is. I have something for my school. Either it's an announcement or something. I just got to prompt it to say certain things. So that's what I'm saying. It can be useful if you know how to use it and not just like what Jesse does, try to become a scholar with AI and rely on it all. And I can tell, and you know what? Metaphysic Mike did the same thing when I
Mhm.
debated him. Oh my goodness. And we were discussing the Aramaic Maria or Maria, I say, or the Aramaic form for the Tetragrammaton. And I told him how it's used because he didn't know. He was typing, and I was like, "Why are you typing?" And he wasn't really listening. I was saying, I was trying to tell him that when Jesus says that David in the Spirit calls the Messiah Lord, that in the Aramaic, that's the Tetragrammaton as Maria. And he did not. So he goes, "What do you mean? That's Tetragrammaton? What about over here in John? Blah blah." I'm like, "John, what are you talking about? Isn't Master Lord there Maria?" I said, and I could tell he pulled that up from Chat GPT. They gave him the wrong answer. And I'm like,
Mhm.
no, that's Marie, or yeah, it was either my Lord. Yeah, it was Marie. I go, no, that's not Maria and John. He sat there, he's kind of looking. I can see he's looking at the screen, like
Yeah,
trying
he's
to
trying
figure
to
out
find something.
what it says or how he can disprove that Maria is not the Tetragrammaton. That doesn't
Mhm.
mean that. And I'm like, it's in every Aramaic lexicon that in the Old Testament they substitute the Tetragrammaton for Maria, the Mem Resh Yod Aleph, for the
Mhm.
Tetragrammaton, and that carried over into the New Testament. And so Jesus is referred to a number of times in the New Testament as Maria, which is the Yod He Vav He, because it's only used that way in the Hebrew Bible, Hebrew Aramaic Peshitta, and it carried over for Jesus here. So they don't use it for anybody else. So I was trying to explain to them that's why Jesus is called Maria, which is technically Yod He Vav He in the Aramaic as in the Old Testament. Oh, he was looking, and he really, you could tell, I could tell he used AI, and he used AI, and it gave him the wrong answer in the wrong verse. Because then I went back and I looked at John verse. I said, why do you say that? I looked it up, and it said Marie. I'm like, my Lord, not the Tetragrammaton form. So that would be Memresh Yod, and that's it. And
Mhm.
so he used AI. He was using chat or AI to try to get it, and it gave him a wrong hallucinating answer. That is the problem.
And
Jesse
if he
does
knew better, he wouldn't have answered with that.
nope, exactly. And so that's why I'm like, this is what we've come down to now, because
Mhm.
scholarship doesn't matter to these people. Training in the language doesn't matter. They would rather trust in the AI prompting of their own Unitarian ideas and concepts, and hopefully it's right or not. And so it's like that's what you're
But I
left.
do also blame people like Dustin Smith or Dale Tuggy because they get involved with these people in the community and
Mhm.
lead them. They feed them this information, which is false. I mean, for instance, like wisdom Christology from Dustin Smith, he loves bringing up wisdom Christology, and he
Right.
totally misrepresents it.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep. Yep. And
and
that's
they
why, yeah.
follow what he's saying.
Oh yeah. They'll use his book as if it's like the highest in all of academia, even though it's a self-published book through a company. It's not recognized. It's not been. It's a Unitarian book. That's all it is
Mhm.
for Unitarians. That's why it would never be picked up anywhere else, because it's geared towards that audience. So,
It debunks itself in its own
and it does. It
literature.
does.
So
It does big time. That's why I asked Dr. Michael Brown about that too, and he's the same thing. He says, and like I said, I would hold, more even in Semitic scholarship, non-Trinitarians understand what Dustin's saying is not 100%.
mhm.
That's not how it works. Even Gesenius's Hebrew grammar book, when Dustin tries to use Maccabees and other places where that's a plural of majesty, and like Gesenius says, you cannot interpret those passages that way with the royal we majesty majestic plural is you can't, it's wrong. So even Dustin is corrected by a 19th century grammarian that comes way later that he did. That's, you would know that if he actually did the work, that you can't
Mhm.
do that. That's why it's only written for Unitarians with no verification, no checks, you know.
Exactly. I heard the oddest thing today about Galatians 3:13.
Mhm.
Apparently, we worship a God that's cursed, so we don't have a real God.
But Trinitarians.
Yeah, yeah, this was Jesse. He brings up Galatians 3:13, and he has an issue that Jesus became a curse. God became a curse. That literally means he became flesh.
Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law, having become a curse for us. For it is written, "Curses everyone who hangs on a tree," in order that in Christ Jesus the blessing of Abraham might come to the Gentiles, so that we may have received promise. What is he saying? I don't understand. How is he saying that?
He's saying we worship a cursed God, so therefore he's not God.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh,
Without understanding what that means. It's
wow.
literally the redemption. That's
Yeah,
what it means.
yeah. In the flesh, though, redeeming of the curse of die.
That's what it means
Okay,
to he became in the curse. He
okay.
became flesh. So it's a Trinitarian verse.
This is the problem. And I found this out. Why they keep doing this? They don't believe. They believe in soul sleep. I don't know if you're familiar with that. That they believe that when you die, that's it. Nothing else. You don't exist until the resurrection. So at the
Okay.
grave,
Almost like a purgatory kind of thing.
no purgatory. No. When you
You just don't
die,
exist.
you just when you die, it's over. You don't exist, and you're pretty much you're not conscious anymore until the resurrection. It's a
Wow.
Jehovah
So
Witness.
almost,
It's a Jehovah's Witnesses view.
yeah.
Okay,
So it's
it's
almost like
called
you're
soul
going
sleep.
into cryogenic sleep.
Yeah, and there's nothing. There's no memory, no vision, no dreams. You're done. Yeah, you're black. You have no conscious. And then at the resurrection, you'll be awakened in the new body. And all that. That is their current position of Unitarians that I've talked to numerous, and every single one of them affirm that that's what they believe. Even Metaphysic Mike, a number of them do. The Just Dustin, I think, and even
Where's
okay.
it
So
scripturally though?
it's not. But here's the problem. And Paul speaks on this on the opposite end, and I pointed this out many times in Ephesians and in Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, and no, he's Philippians and 2 Corinthians. That Paul. So here's the problem. Here's the problem is that they believe. So when they read the scriptures like that, they're only looking at the physical body aspect of it because they don't believe the spirit exists outside the body. So they think everything is dead at that point until the resurrection. Therefore, everything they read like that, the curse and all that, they put it as a single unit. They don't make a distinction between the spirit and the flesh. They don't have any of that. So to them, it's all one unit, and that's it. Body, spirit, and soul is all one unit. When it all dies, it all goes to the ground until the resurrection. Everything. There's nothing left.
That is extreme Unitarianism.
Yes, well, and that's Jehovah Witnesses believe that.
Yeah.
Modern Judaism, Orthodox Jews, a lot of on the ultra Orthodox believe that it's a common practice
because the
now.
Bible, even the Jews, they used to believe you go to Sheol in the waiting place.
Right. Well, even with Paul, and I always brought this up, Paul, and I went to the Greek on this. It's undeniable, and even in the Greek. But even when Paul talks about things like like in Philippians, for me to live is Christ and to die is gain. But if I am to live on in the flesh, this will mean fruitful labor for me. And I do not know which to choose, for I am hard pressed for both directions, having the desire to depart and be with Messiah, depart from this, or for that is much better, yet to remain on in the flesh is more necessary for your sake. So he makes it clear that he desires to leave this flesh, leave the body, be with Messiah, rather than but because it's better for you, I'm going to remain in the flesh here. So Paul makes a distinction between the spirit and the flesh, that when he dies, he's going to be with the Messiah, which is his desire, but it's better for you now for me to remain in the flesh to benefit, to be fruit. So Paul makes that clear distinction. And he also says that again in Colossians, that absent from the body is to be present with the Lord, but he makes it so that's the first
it
one.
also doesn't make sense though, because if Jesus had to go so he can send the Holy Spirit, John 16, Jesus would not be existing right now until Judgment Day. What?
Well, they would, yeah. So they have a different view that when Jesus died, he was just didn't exist until the
John
resurrection.
16 I love bringing up, because John 16 is very clear. If the Holy Spirit is just the Father Spirit, okay, he's not a distinct person. Jesus stating the Holy Spirit, he sends the Holy Spirit to come, makes Jesus God then over the Father.
Correct. No, wait. Say it again. Say it again.
Because they believe the Holy Spirit is just the Father's Spirit.
Right.
And
Exactly.
Jesus
Yeah.
is the one sending the Holy Spirit to come.
Right.
So that
Right.
makes Jesus God over the Father.
Yeah, because he's sending the Father and the Spirit to do it. He's actually doing the sending. And that's a good. There you go. Yeah. Which means he's superior to that point of he's able to send the Father. Yeah. I
So
mean,
I don't know how a
that's
normal human being can do that.
nope. And I don't need one who's exalted to this right side is now superior to send the Father as the Spirit. But that's the point is that they don't make those distinctions. Obviously, they can't. But that's how when they review that death. When Paul says again about the earthly tent, he says, "For we now know that if the earthly tent, which is our house, is torn down, we have a building from God, a house not made from hands, eternal from the heavens." It says, "Therefore, being always of good courage, and knowing that while we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Lord, for we walk by faith, not by sight. I say, I prefer rather to be absent from the body and to be at home with the Lord." And then he says, "Therefore, we also have our ambition, whether at home or absent, is pleasing to him." So he'd rather be absent from the body and be present with the Lord. That's his desire in Philippians. That's his 2 Corinthians 5. So he makes a distinction. So the body goes to the ground, like we said. That's the curse. That's the death of the body, but the spirit lives on. That's why Jesus can say, "In my hands I commit my spirit to the Father." The spirit goes, as he tells the thief, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Paul makes a clear distinction that when we die, and James says, the body without the spirit is dead. So the spirit leaves the body dies. Now I tell people this because even oneness have a big problem, because they like to say, well, Jesus in the flesh is praying to the Father, or Jesus in the flesh is praying, to the, which is they're trying to make. It's interesting because it's like, and even for the Unitarians, it's like our spirit is what keeps the body alive. As James says, when it leaves, the body dies. So imagine me living in a suit made, let's say, an astronaut suit. I'm on Mars and I leave and I have a suit on. If I leave that suit, the suit collapses. It's like dead. It doesn't exist. It's not animated. But I am the one in the suit animating and keeping it going. That's the flesh of the tent of our flesh. Our spirit is what keeps the body moving and going. So the spirit is our true nature. When it moves out of the body dies, goes back to the ground, the spirit goes to be with God. The Unitarians don't believe that. They believe that all go. That's why they have a problem distinguishing Jesus's nature with God and the flesh. And they don't know how to make that distinction because they don't believe that there's a distinction between the spirit, the body, and the soul. They don't. That's where the problem lies, is again, language, understanding of terms. So they don't believe that. So they believe in soul sleep. It's like the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah.
That's why Jesse brought up Galatians about being cursed, that God is cursed, because he doesn't know how to distinct the flesh from the spirit.
Yeah. But I mean, they're throwing what, and this is the issue I have with Metaphysics Mike as well. They're throwing what Jesus came to do us away, the seriousness of it. Because even with Metaphysics Mike, when he says the crucifixion is just metaphorical, things like that, you're literally making a mockery of Christianity, because that's the foundation of Christian faith, is the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus. If you're saying it's just metaphorical, you don't have a right to call yourself a Christian, because I'm sorry to be blunt, but that's literally that, because you're misrepresenting what the foundation of Christianity is.
Did you hear what one Unitarian said about Christ, or if God died, or if God was the one in the flesh and died, it means nothing. It's nothing. That was by will from the other Unitarian. He's made that comment. Well, if it's God who came down and just died, and it's nothing. There's nothing special about that. It's really nothing. I'm like, are you? What are
you trying to be a Christian?
I'm like, well, for us that would be blasphemous. Saying that Jesus' death as a human being is greater and more than if God did it himself and took on that form and gave up, and that is literally means nothing. That only human. I like that. That just blew me away. I mean, it's just like, are you really that dense that you don't understand what God did for humanity in the sense of as the Word coming into His creation? suffering and doing all the things he didn't have to do. I mean, he literally did not have to do any of it. And you're going to say because he picked a man to do it, a human being, that is a greater thing to do than him doing it himself. I don't. And that's why people. That's like I don't understand, because even in our everyday culture, even our own simple minds, if someone high up in a I don't know, hierarchy or your company, if he came down to the lower level employees or lower people, and he started to do the work and suffer and sweat and join them,
People respect that.
Yeah, like, wow, he's one. He's one of us.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing the work. That has great than just saying, "Oh, you over there, you go do that, and you suffer and do all that, and I'm just going to sit here and applaud."
I mean, there would be there's literally be nothing about it. He could just use, for instance, Mahatma Gandhi could have died for us since then. What's the difference?
You could have picked any of the prophets. You could have picked any of the prophets to do it. He didn't. I mean, the point is you're right, is that there's a greater, not a respect, but a greater thing that he did it in his own creation versus, like I said, and that's the greatest love, is that he would do that versus the Unitarians saying, well, no, Jesus picking Jesus as the Messiah, as a man, and being born, that's greater than if God does it himself. I'm like, even our common world understanding, that does not fit.
So what's the reason then? Why would God specifically have the virgin birth? If for what reason? What does it make more special? Does that mean because you're born of a virgin, therefore you're just going to be sinless? That's not.
And then I want to know how that happened, because I have two different views: Unitarians who deny the virgin birth, and the other one that says that. Yeah, and then the other Unitarian said that God magically produced a seed out of nothing and put it in there. So you have the two views that I've heard. One is Jesse's view that doesn't exist, and the other one is a magic seed that was a magic sperm seed that was placed into Mary, created out of nothing. So those are your two options that I've heard Unitarians give, because the virgin birth has to show there's no human interference, and if he didn't pre-exist, then where did that seed come from? And it had to magically, or not magically, but miraculously produced out of thin air and placed in there. And how was that determined? Or how? I mean, that is their only explanation. Even though the Bible doesn't mention creation out of nothing in that sense like that, that is their view, that he magically, miraculously created it and then out of nothing.
And that's the view that I've seen, for instance, that I think hinders them from understanding, because I see this from Jesse a lot, and why he brings up bringing Ganeo, when it comes into existence, he cannot understand that coming to existence is in the flesh.
Exactly.
It's not taking away his divinity. It's that creation is the flesh creation. It means he already was and now is. And that's why he says, I am that I am, I will be who I'll be, because he's both.
Yep. And that's the whole thing, is that the coming in creation through the incarnation is what we call it. So it's called the incarnation for a reason. So when Unitarian, that's what I say, it's like you said before, I don't know if I know he's slow, but I think he's bold, because when he tries to explain, well, I know what you Trinitarians believe, and he expresses it correctly, and then he does something like that, what you just said, and puts it as coming into existence as if it's just everything. It's because, one, they don't believe in the pre-existence, and two, they don't know the distinction of the spirit and the body existing outside of each other. So
but that's the thing. Why he does believe in pre-existence, though. He believes that we all actually pre-exist. Yeah, he believes everybody pre-exists actually. So he contradicts his own thought pattern.
Yeah, but he's saying in God's mind, right? That God knew everybody. So it's a pre-exist. Even I get that part. Okay, we all pre-existed in God's mind of knowing all that, but that doesn't mean anything, because
doesn't mean you existed, though.
Does that mean? Yeah, exactly. Does that mean?
I mean,
if
we draw up a plan for let's just say I do an invention, and I got it in my mind. It doesn't exist yet. I've got an idea of what I want, and I draw up a plan. It doesn't exist until I actually make it.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Until it's actually exactly right. But here's the point. Even the passages that affirm Jesus pre-existence, or Philippians 2:7, in the form of God pre-existence, or in John 1:3, he was with God in companionship with him, next to him.
Bosom.
These, yeah, in the bosom, all these verses, it's either mistranslation or it's inference commentary from the lexicon. That's their answer, because BDAG recognizes the grammatical understanding, the usage of the word, how it's being applied in scripture as pre-existence, and all these passages are coming down from heaven, as Paul says. Those are the ones where now they're either not literal, they're inference, they're commentary from the lexicon. They have to literally create a different answer outside of scholarship that doesn't exist.
Exactly.
And that's what bugs me, because it's like, then stop using scholarship in your own arguments, because now you're in a whole different, you're either going to accept it or you're going to reject it and stop using it. Just stop.
Yeah, you can't decide to use, for instance, a scholar, and you only want to literally take half a sentence in in the whole dissertation and say, you see, he agrees with me. In the meantime, the 99.9% of everything else disagrees with what you say. But because you want to take 4 words out of a sentence, say, you see, this is what he's saying, that's very disingenuous.
Yep. Oh,
That's
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But like I said, that's what they do. Or they'll say, oh, I don't like that translation. Or that's just commentary from the scholar. Or that's just like.
And that's what I got from him in our debate when we were discussing. He was bringing Hebrews 5 the whole time. I'm trying to say Psalms 2, and 2 Samuel are 2 different contexts. They're not the same structure. It's not the same. You can clearly see, and I mean, that's what I learned from you about the Hebrew there, because I knew it was Yahweh as distinct, but I didn't go into the Hebrew there. And I wish I actually did.
I know.
But the whole time I'm looking at, he doesn't want me to read the context. I understand what he's going, and he's keep on repeating himself.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I did actually bring up the Hebrew there, I think he would have.
He would have yelled out plural majesty or something. Because again, that's what he would have yelled out, because this next verse talks about Elohim as they went to redeem for himself. And I'm like, Jesse's would be like, that's plural majesty. That says, or he'll bring up like a video, Dr. Michael Brown talking about something. I mean, it's just, you don't want to abide by what scripture says. Fine. But stop using part of it and then ignoring the rest, because the second part destroys your whole argument. When it says there's no other Elohim beside him, the Elohim, whether it's abstract, if you want to say abstract, Godhead, theotes, divinity, or the deities, it is most commonly understood, deities, the second part refers with the plural verb that they went to redeem. Elohim, that's the pluralness of Elohim, as deities or divinities or the ones who went. So don't, either you're going to accept it or stop using the verse before it as if it proves your point. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. Don't use it.
But I do think the verse of kryptonite is Philippians 2, because if I've seen one verse that they want to avoid with like anything, it's Philippians 2.
Yep.
How dare you use Philippians 2, because you take it out of context when you're reading on screen exactly what it says.
And they only focus on morphe. They don't get into the other words that actually refute everything they say in that text. BDAG, I love BDAG. BDAG lays it out, and it uses external outside sources, non-biblical sources, to support what it's trying to say. That Jesus was existing in the very form of God, as God, in the state of God, and he did empty himself of his what was the word I was using? He emptied himself of his privileges, divested himself of all those things, and he put on the form of a slave, being found in the fashion of a man, being obedient to the Father. I mean, it's a transitional thing that Paul deals with, transition from being from God to found as a man, putting on slave, obedient to the Father, emptying himself of all his privileges. And that's what the text says grammatically. Even the lexicon understands that, and it uses outside non-biblical sources to support that what it's saying, that this is how it's understood. So, and you're right, they will read morphe. Look at morphe, only morphe.
Even the morphe, even if you use the morphe and you go into the BDAG to look at the morphe, it actually affirms he took on the form. So he took on, that means he was something. Just like when you say, well, to put on a jacket, I have to physically be something to put on a jacket.
Right. Or to put on clothes. You have to exist to put on clothes. And here,
and there's another good analogy I heard from one of my South African apologist friends, where he's like, okay, let's say I have a shirt on. Now, if I put a jacket over the shirt, does that mean I don't have the shirt on anymore?
Right.
I still have the shirt on. I have the jacket now. That's exactly what this is. God is still there. He just took on another nature. So he still is God in human nature.
And here, and like I said, morphe, form, outward appearance, shape. It says he took on the form of a slave equals express civility. This is in contrast to express divinity in the pre-existent Christ, although he was in the form of God. That's BDAG. So it makes a distinction from Philippians 2, 6, and 7, but puts it together as being, this is what is being referenced here from Philippians 2 as being in the form of a slave in contrast to form of God, pre-existence. This is the expression of divinity. So BDAG recognizes morphe, outward appearance, and it contrasts it with form of a slave, morphe, form of God. And that's pre-existence and divinity. Yeah. So that is BDAG, and it understands the difference because morphe slave and morphe God are in the contrast to each other, showing divinity pre-existence to now putting on the form of a slave. Morphe.
And by the way, this just answered his whole rant that he had, literally just on screen there.
Yep. That's what I'm saying. He says, well, look at morphe. No, you don't want to look at morphe because morphe will destroy you, and you're going to say, well, that's just BDAG's inference. That's just BDAG commentary.
Well, I did laugh when, remember, I asked you to bring up the Halit. Or Echad. And he's like, he goes through the Halit, he goes down. It's like, show me where you see united. Show me where it's united. Literally says there, they are a unit being together.
Exactly.
There's so many references there showing united.
And but even in the New Testament,
the word unity.
Yeah, but that's the point is, in the New Testament, they acknowledge that when Jesus talks about, we are one with him, he's with us, Father, that's unity. Mm-hmm. And in the Hebrew, of course, that's echad, because that's the only way you could translate it that way. So even from the Greek to the Hebrew, it's echad, it's the same thing. So they'll acknowledge the unity within the New Testament, even in the Hebrew text of echad being used as unity. I and the Father are one. In the Hebrew would be echad. In the prayer, it's echad. That's the point, is you'll acknowledge a unity in the New Testament when it talks about us being one with Jesus and the Father and all this, but you won't acknowledge it in the Old Testament when it talks about the unity of God or the unity of anything else. It doesn't change. This is why it's like they're so inconsistent on what they say. It's just mind-boggling. It blows me away.
Exactly. So, and I mean, the fact that Paul was even referencing the Shema and making it a Trinitarian verse shows that the apostles understood they believed in the Trinity.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, you don't have to, and I'll say, you don't have to say Trinity. You say, like I said, we can call it with the powers, the three powers, or if you want to say Jewish concepts of it, it's still the same thing. Okay, that's why it says early Jewish grammarians called it the plural powers, or the three powers as Nazarenes. We call it the Trinity coming in there. I guess obviously, we want to say that the label had been established because of what was already understood in Scripture. This is a consistent. So you can call it Trinity or the powers, the three powers, or however you want. It's still the plurality of the nature of God appearing in the three. Period. We have polemic works on that and everything else. Yeah,
and that's why I love Genesis 18 so much.
To
me, that's like one of my. I always bring that up.
Yep, and even that passage. Okay. When you look at, and I make this point, and I don't know if I made it with you yet. You have the first three times that Yahweh literally appeared visibly to be seen. Hallowed says it. Brown Driver Briggs says it, that Yahweh either was seen or literally appeared first. In Genesis 12 was the first time to Abraham in verse 7, where Yahweh appeared. That word appeared in the Hebrew. The lexicon says this was a visible appearance. It doesn't say who Abraham saw, like what he saw, but it says Yahweh appeared visibly. Now, that's the
Exactly.
only thing that got left out. And then you see it in 17, verse
We
1.
also have to point out Unitarians
Yeah.
love, in case people are listening, Unitarians love to misrepresent and say in a vision. It
Oh,
doesn't say in a vision. It doesn't say
Hallowed,
that.
Hallowed says it's a visible, that Yahweh let himself be seen. BDB says this was a visible appearance.
Exactly,
Visible.
because I
So
just
the
had to point it
lexicons
out.
is great. Yeah, I'm glad you did, because I've heard that too. The lexicons don't agree.
Mm-hmm.
Even Hallowed doesn't agree. But and then again, it happens again in 17, verse 1. Yahweh appeared.
With Hagar.
And again, Hallowed says the same thing. No, that's that would
Oh,
be
no, that's
16.
16.
Abraham. Yeah, 17 to Abraham again. He
Mhm.
appears to Abraham again visibly. Hallowed says again, Yahweh lets it be seen. BDB says visibly.
Mhm.
That's the first 2 times. Now, the thing about that is, it doesn't say, Moses doesn't say what he saw until you get to 18.
Mhm.
The
That's
same
nice.
third appearance, Yahweh appeared visibly, according to Hallowed, and lets himself be seen. And then this time Moses says he lifted up and saw 3 men.
Amen. Adonai, and he
So
called them Adonai.
I called them Adonai, my Lord. He greeted them
Mhm.
with that divine plural name. And that's the first time that Adonai appears without the tetragrammaton, by itself in plural form.
What's your thoughts on this? Because I get this a lot with the people that, because they just believe those other 2 men are just angels.
Mhm.
But when you get to 19, you see Lot actually deifying these 2 angels.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's what I say. First, I say I deal with those 3 appearances as recognition, because Abraham knew who those 3 men were. So that means he had to have seen them before. He wasn't surprised. He ran to greet them, bowed down, and says, "Oh Adonai." So I say he knew them because of 12:7 and 17:1.
Mm.
He obviously seen them before, and even in 17, Elohim is mentioned there as having a conversation separate from Yahweh. But the point is, they appeared twice before. I believe Abraham saw them just like that before as 3 men. So when he saw them in 18, and Moses says he saw 3 men, he went, bowed down, Adonai, my lords, and then they speak as one. They said in verses 5 and 9. And even Abraham talks to him in the plural, and refers to him in the plural as well. When you get to 19, like you said, when there's a separation, here's the interesting part. When they separate, Yahweh, it says, Moses says that Yahweh remained with Abraham. Abraham still calls that person Adonai, Adonai, Adonai. He's still referring to him as Adonai. The 2 men go. Now they're only called messenger 2 times in the whole entire 19. They're still called men like 6 times. They're still called men, but there's 2 of them. So when Lot sees them, Lot recognizes them, goes, bows before them, and says, "Oh Adonai."
That's
The
my point.
same, yes, but it gets better, because they're called messengers only 2 times. So when Lot refers to them as Adonai, they're messengers and men the same way before. But in verse 18, when Lot says, and Lot said to them, he says, "O Adonai, let me go to Zohar." He refers to him again for the 3rd time, for the 2nd time, as Adonai in verse 18. "O Adonai." And it says, Lot said to them, plural, "O Adonai." Then
And
you
you,
get to 24, where it's Yahweh, right? Because
combine,
all 3, and then we go a little further down, it says Elohim destroyed the cities. The
boom, plural.
Godhead, plural, the abstract plural of Godhead. And then the ultimate nail in the coffin, when Abraham is reflecting back to Genesis 12 to Abimelech, he says, "By the way, it was Elohim the first time he used that title. They are the ones who caused me to leave my father's house." And that is the first time Abraham appeared to him visibly in verse 7, when he told him to leave his father's house in that context. So he recognized the plural back to 12, which supports the 12 and 17 visible appearance of the 3 already before 18, because he reflects back to that and says, "They are the ones who caused me to wander from my father's house." And that's the first time he used the word Elohim, and he didn't use it with a singular verb. He used it with the plural to identify more than one deities or abstract Godhead divine ones, who called them in Genesis 12, where Yahweh visibly appeared to him. So that is the tie-in.
And that's why I say, and that's why you get, for instance, Jesse, he stays away from Hebrew. because the Hebrew destroys Unitarianism.
It does. It does. There's so much
There
of
is
the
no place for
yeah.
Unitarianism. And the funny thing is, he's always claiming, if you build your theology on the Old Testament as the authority, you will be a Unitarian.
Yeah,
No, it's totally opposite.
I did. The Muslims say the same thing. You have the oneness people say the same thing because they believe the one person of God, and they can't deal with the plurality in the Old Testament. Neither does Unitarian. So all that, yeah, you're right. They cannot handle, and then you're right. They do not know the Hebrew to be able to show these distinctions. They don't. It's all English based. They rely. They don't know the languages. They're not looking for it, and they don't care. Even when you point it out, they don't care.
And we just have
So
to point out, guys, Adonai is only for Yahweh. You can never use it for
you can't.
anyone else.
You
They'll never
right.
use it for an angel. And the fact that,
Can't use it for anyone else.
yeah, and I've had this as well with, oh, well, Abraham is called Adoni. Yeah, that's master. That's just a normal, ordinary
That's a
master.
singular possessive form.
Exactly.
Singular. The Adonai is a plural possessive, first person possessive, plural. So my Lord's God, my Lord Adoni, and you won't find God being called Adoni like directly, but Abraham and men are called Adoni, kings, messengers, masters, rulers. Well, you have Adonai, the plural form, divine title, which is used for Yahweh, Yahweh alone.
Amen.
And that's why, yeah, you can't. That's why it's very important to make that distinction. But again, that's why I point out the first 20 chapters of Genesis, if you keep them in context and you follow the pattern, you can't get away of the Trinitarian appearance. And that goes back to what I said earlier, where scholarship says pre-Israelite history, Elohim was always a plural. And there's no consensus on how it changed. But you see with Abraham using it pre-Israelite history, he used it with the plural verb. And there's no plural of majesty. One thing we know for certain, there is no plural of majesty with pronouns and verbs. Okay, it doesn't exist in those, and when you have that. So you cannot say Abraham is using a plural of majesty because he used a plural verb, and pronouns you cannot use it when they use it with pronouns as well. So no, it doesn't fit. That's in every single scholarship material, even the encyclopedia of the linguistic languages, major published by Brill. So the same thing within verbs and pronouns. Plural majesty does not exist. You cannot try to impose that into the text at all. What do you have? Yeah. So what do you think, man? We're up here an hour and a half.
Yeah, that was a good discussion. I enjoyed it.
I loved it. And when Jesse puts up his little, if he does, Pro Majesty, we got to go over that.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Then we can go and laugh at everything he says because it's going to be.
Gosh, yeah, it's going to be a good time. Is there anything else you want to conclude?
Yeah, as soon as he gets up, we'll schedule something for that because I'm definitely up for that.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, we'll do that. Yeah, we'll figure it out, but we'll do this again. I love doing this. We'll have some top topics. I know we got to review some stuff. I want to do the oneness thing eventually. I got to get to that, but we'll figure it out. We'll get to that. But yeah, we'll come on again. Is there anything else you want to say before we call off?
Yeah, guys, don't forget to hit the like, support Dr. Garza, man. Share it and let Jesse know to actually watch it, which he's probably going to do anyway. But Jesse, take this seriously, man. Listen to what we're saying. We're saying it because we care. It's not because we're trying to make fun of you, although it's still a funny thing. But it is a serious thing. Your heart is not in the right place. And we care about your salvation and all the Unitarians out there. And God judges teachers, and you are claiming to be a teacher. And because you are teaching people wrong, it's your responsibility to correct yourself. And that's what we're doing here. We're correcting you because you are ignorant, and we're not beating around the bush, and we care. So yeah.
Yep.
And thanks,
and
Dr.
there's a harsher punishment for teachers, as James says, a stricter, more harsher. So for them to, like Jesse and others like that, they really should be fearful that what they could be putting out there is very, very dangerous because it's inconsistent. It's out there that doesn't even fit the scriptures itself historically or anything like that. So yeah, you're very right. I'm glad you brought that up. But yeah, definitely, Keith. I know your channel, right? Creality Jesus Saves. Same thing. Go on there, like, subscribe, follow, leave comments. We try to answer them as best we can. We will again come on in the future. But thank you, Keith, for coming on. I appreciate it. I'm always great to have a conversation with you. But we will do this again, brother. I appreciate it. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Again, this is Bible Answers Unfiltered and Black Belt Theology and Apologetics. I'm your host, Dr. Garza. Thank you, and God bless.
That was right on it. That was perfect.